Love, above all things, love. So, those are the words of the Bohemians from the great movie Moulin Rouge by Baz Luhrmann, one of my all-time favourite films.
Love. Love. Above all things, I believe in love. Love is like oxygen. Love is a many splendid thing. Love lifts us up where we belong. All you need is love.
And I actually had occasion to use that phrase yesterday in a conversation with a dear friend when we were talking about goals and guiding principles. So yeah, grabbed my GoPro on the way out. I'm in my favourite place. And I'm glad I did grab it because this is where creativity hits me. You'll forgive my out of breathness because I'm going up a hill. I'm in my sandals, would you believe? Such a nice day. Anyway, what am I on about? Guiding principles, what are they? This is something it's helping me to shape my life in the way that I want to shape it. I took a course with August Bradley back in November last year, 2020, that year. And he taught me all about guiding principles and how to align my actions towards those principles. I didn't know what my principles were. You know what I mean? What the heck are guiding principles? Primary purpose. What's that? So I began to think about it and talk it out on tape, which is quite often how I come to conclusions, much as I'm doing now. Put a microphone on my shirt, go for a walk, make my podcast and publish it. And I did publish a couple talking about what it was like when I first discovered August Bradley's content, and as I was exploring my guiding principles. Now, guiding principles are things that are unique to everyone and they can change. So understanding that was important. And one of the things that came to light during August's course was that most people in the course didn't really get it, had never thought about it, and were asking for examples from August. And he was like, well, you know, I could show you mine, but they're mine. So a few of us struggled, actually, me included. And as I began to explore it, it felt like it was getting further away the more I looked for it. One of the things I'm trying to do more of all the time, every day, is to unplug from the busyness and give my mind time to process. And this actually came up in a book I was reading this morning, a book written by Sean Tucker, a photographer and video maker whose content I admire greatly. And in his book, which I'll link to below, I can't remember the name of it right now, he talked about this very thing. You know, how is it that when you get in the shower you have ideas, but at no other time? It's because that's when you put your screens down, that's when you stop listening to podcasts or engaging in this or that or the other thing. So by starting to do that more, walking in the mornings with no AirPods in, no audiobooks, no podcasts, just walking, and not going out with a specific thing to think about, just, you know, which is why I love it up here so much, up above Lamlash in the forestry. In fact, I've got a call with August Bradley's new class at 6, which is in 55 minutes time, and I'm still heading outwards, so I'm not going to be back in time for the call's beginning, but I think this at the moment is a little bit more important. So anyway, yeah, guiding principles. I think I got the message from Moulin Rouge, which I watched again for the I don't know how many time, because I just love that movie, but I watched it for the first time with my daughter, or rather I watched it with her for her first time last week, and it was, you know, it had me greeting, just as it always does. And the thing that stood out, as it always does, was that phrase, you know, love, above all things, love. And the greatest thing you will ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. I think that encapsulates my guiding principles right there. Those two little phrases from the movie, which is probably why I've always really liked Peter Gabriel's music, particularly the song Love to Be Loved, because I felt like it described me quite well, you know. So now I've got my guiding principles, I want to align all my daily actions towards those principles. And I'm becoming aware that I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. Now, this ties in beautifully with the tenets of the 12th step AA program. It feels to me like this is another way of getting to the same place. Step 12, we continued to practice these principles in all our affairs. In other words, you align your life towards your guiding principles, which in the case of Alcoholics Anonymous is sobriety, which you get by helping others through service, through love, really, in a word. So here's an example. Yesterday I was sitting at home, it got to 7 o'clock and I looked out the window and I saw the light was, well, just like it is now actually. It was beautiful. So chucked my camera in my bag, said to my wife, I'm away out. She said, have you fed Hamish? I was like, no. She said, have you walked the dogs? I said, no. Now the thing is, if I walk the dogs, because Poppy's elderly and infirm, it takes twice as long. So I thought, right, if I don't take the dogs, I can go out, I can film for half an hour and be back by 8 and then feed Hamish and everything will be fine. And then I thought, is that acting with love? And I think the conclusion I came to was that it wasn't. So there's an example of something I'm doing that doesn't align to my guiding principles. So those are the things I need to change. I suppose awareness is the first step, right? First step of Alcoholics Anonymous is to accept your powerlessness, which I suppose comes after awareness, doesn't it? So in a sense, awareness is the first step and acceptance is the second step. But let's not mess around with the steps. Let's talk about love, and let's talk about despair, which I believe is the opposite of love. It's not hate, it's more like despair or indifference. My favourite books, Thomas Covenant by Stephen R. Donaldson, the last of which I finished a month ago, and I went right back to the beginning, which is immense. I've been listening to Lord Phil's Bane. In fact, I was listening to it just before I hit record. And those books are all about a character who's called to a fantasy land by a cave wight who finds the staff of law. And he doesn't believe in the land where he finds himself. He thinks it's a dream. But ultimately, he, in the real world, is an outcast, and he doesn't live his life with love as his guiding principle. He lives it with despair as his guiding principle. Whether that's a choice or not, that's how he lives. And so in the land, the baddie, Lord Phil, is really, what's the word? Exemplification? No. Extemporaneous? No. something outside of him. It's like his despair has become a personification. I can't think of the word, but you know what I mean, right? And so when he's in the land, he treats people with contempt. Does that sound like anyone you know? Speaking about myself here. And he goes around being rude to people. Remind you of anyone? And the people that he meets, they come to believe in him, although he doesn't believe in himself, right? And so it's a story of how he comes to accept his shortcomings and become whole, I think is what I'm trying to say. And that's, I think, why I've always loved these books. When I first read them, I think it was the early 90s it would have been, when I was going through my recovery from my accident. And so I would have been 18, 19. And that was kind of the beginning of my trauma, my despair. Although I didn't know it at the time. You know, it was, in some ways it was a happy time because I was kind of free in a lot of ways. But that's when I spent a lot of time drinking and I began taking drugs, which I thought was justified because of the trauma and the pain. I actually got into drugs through smoking the old weed, as many people do, which I started doing because it relieved the pain of the leg injury. So I felt justified, you know. But I think by then I was drinking to black out, with no awareness whatsoever of what I was trying to avoid. So that was kind of the beginning, I think. And so reading Thomas Covenant at that time, I was like I was reading about myself, you know. And honestly, it still is. And I'm pleased to see that after 10 books, the conclusion was absolutely perfect. Well, let's not say absolutely. It was perfect. It was highly satisfactory. Just got to the end. I'm doing an about turn. I won't give away the ending of the book. You can do that yourself if you have hours and hours to spare, because these are not short books. So yeah, this is what's been on my mind as I listen to Thomas Covenant again, having earned the knowledge of how the whole thing ends and then gone back to the beginning. I can read much more into it about how this character is dealing with despair in a land that might not be real. You know, that's never really concluded. Doesn't matter actually whether it is or not. The point is that he's there and he has to deal with stuff just as we all do. You know, this is the thing. So this is my fantasy land, right? I get to come here, although obviously I believe in it. I know it's real, but I get to come here and explore my thoughts on tape, which I find extremely helpful. And I get to reconnect, to connect to source, my higher power, which, yes, it does keep me sober. But sobriety is not about putting the alcohol down. Sobriety is a way of life. And I think that August Bradley's system that I've been using since November is a way of getting me to a place where everything that I do is about that connection. So yeah, it's a work in progress. I'm getting there, almost 50. I've got a system. If you're interested, you can check out the August Bradley course. It's just started again this week, the second iteration of the course. And August has brought me on as a mentor for the course because I'm one of the ones from the first iteration who seems to be doing something interesting with it and making use of it in ways that perhaps he hadn't thought about. You know, how does a recovering alcoholic use a productivity system? You know, well, that's what I'm doing. So it is helping me with productivity, but I have to make sure that the productivity, the things that I am doing, whether that be making affiliate marketing videos or writing a weekly newsletter, planning to write a book, what was the other big one? Oh yeah, my visualization, which was that I'm standing on stage after having just delivered a speech that people find moving and helpful, and they're all standing up and applauding me. So I suppose there's a bit of that love to be loved coming through there, but love to be loved not because what? Because I'm helping people by being authentic and sharing my own story from my heart. That's why I want to be loved. And it's not like you plan your life in a way with things that you think will make you loved. It's not about that. It's kind of about not doing that. It's about being the best person that I can be in everything that I do, and then just not worrying about whether people love me or not. And that's when these opportunities might arise. It's a bit like, you know, at the end of The Matrix, I'm sure you've all seen it, so this isn't a spoiler, but when Neo finally gets it and he's fighting Agent Smith, and then all of a sudden becomes effortless, and he's, you know, that scene, it just gives me goosebumps even now thinking about it. It's like that, you know, when Neo just lets go, and then the thing that he was striving for it comes to him so easily. He doesn't have to strive for it anymore. It's just there, and it always was. That's how I think about love. I think in a way that's what Neo found at the end of the first Matrix movie, and it's all around, you know. Love, above all things, love. All you need is love, as the Beatles said, which is also in Moulin Rouge. And we could be heroes just for one day. That little compendium of songs, what's it called? Compilation, mashup. Wow, talk about an amazing little compendium of tunes. In fact, I'll finish with this. When Freya's my daughter, when she was 1, I was learning how to make videos using Premiere Pro. It was like version 6 or something. This is back in, well, I won't give a year away because that will give away Freya's age, but back then I was learning Premiere Pro, and I made a compilation video with little clips taken from a walk around Luxembourg city where we lived at the time, and I used that tune from Moulin Rouge as the background to that music. So whenever I hear that, I can picture each scene of the video as each moment happens. If I can find the video, I'll chuck it up on YouTube and I'll put a link in, because that would be something I should have done a long time ago. Anyway, that's me for today, folks. I'll be back soon. I hope this made sense to some of you. Let me know if you have any thoughts on it. I would love to hear from you, because I can talk about this stuff all day long. It's a journey. It's not the destination, it's the journey. Right? To quote the Night's Radiant. So I'll leave it there, and I will wish you all the very best. Bye for now.
The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love.